my sister said. You'll never be good enough, just quit already. At Thanksgiving dinner, so I quietly left. 2 months later, she showed up at my office crying. You know, it didn't even feel real at first. The moment my sister said it, right there at the Thanksgiving table, with mashed potatoes still warm and the wine barely touched, I remember thinking it had to be a joke. Some twisted family attempt at sarcasm. But when I looked up and saw the smug little smile on her face, I knew. You'll never be good enough. Just quit already. That's what she said. Word for word. And the room didn't flinch. Not my mom, who was carefully carving her turkey breast like nothing had happened. Not my dad, who was scrolling through his phone like it was just another Thursday. Everyone heard it, and no one said a word. I didn't reply. I didn't yell or cry or ask why. I just stood up, left my plate untouched, grabbed my coat from the chair, and walked out the front door. Not a single person stopped me. But honestly, the silence told me more than any argument ever could. Because the truth is, I've always been the disappointment in the family. The one chasing delusions, as my sister once put it. I started a tech company in a garage with a few friends from college. No safety net, no clear path to success, just an idea and stubborn hope. Meanwhile, my sister, Rebecca, climbed the corporate ladder with ruthless precision. Corner office. 6 figures. A fiancé who played golf with our dad. She had it all. And I? I had a dream. A broke, barely functioning dream. For years, I lived with that comparison eating at me. Rebecca's birthday dinners with applause and gifts, while mine came with awkward silence and passive comments like, "Maybe next year will be your year." She had their pride. I had their pity. So that night, when she said what I'd felt my entire life, it didn't break me. It confirmed everything. I went home to my tiny apartment and sat in the dark for a while. No music. No TV. Just silence. Then I opened my laptop and started coding. I didn't sleep. Not that night, and barely the nights that followed. Because if they were going to count me out, I'd make sure they'd regret it. The thing about working 16-hour days is that your mind doesn't have much room left for pain. Those first few weeks after Thanksgiving, I buried myself in my startup like it was the only thing keeping me alive. And in a way, it was. I blocked Rebecca's number without a second thought. I stopped replying to the family group chat. I even turned down an invitation from my mom to come over for Christmas brunch, something I hadn't done since college. It hurt them. I know it did. But I also knew they wouldn't say it out loud. Not this family. We specialized in pretending everything was fine. I made a quiet promise to myself on New Year's Eve. No more proving my worth to people who'd already made up their minds. From now on, everything I did would be for me. For my team. For the vision we'd been fighting for. And then, just when I was starting to think maybe, just maybe, we were running out of luck, it happened. It was a Thursday morning. Cold, gray, and too early to be hopeful. I was halfway through my second cup of instant coffee when the email came in. The subject line was simple: Funding round B opportunity, confirmed. I opened it, skimmed the first few lines, and then reread them, slowly this time. Then again. My heart started racing. We had landed the investment. Not just from anyone, but from a firm we'd pitched to 6 months ago. One of those firms you hear about in tech blogs. The kind with real power, real clout. They were offering more than we'd hoped for. Enough to extend our runway, double our team, and actually, finally, go to market. I didn't scream or punch the air. I just sat there for a long time, staring at my screen, feeling something rise in me I hadn't felt in years. Validation. The kind you don't get from a pat on the back. The kind you earn with sleepless nights and silent dinners and too many broken promises to count. That afternoon, while still riding the high, we got another call, from a major client in the education sector. They'd seen our early prototype, liked what we were building, and wanted a pilot launch in 3 cities. That was the moment I knew we'd made it out of the woods. And yet, even then, part of me was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Some echo of Rebecca's voice still whispered in the back of my head, "You'll never be good enough." But that voice was about to be tested in a way none of us saw coming. Because 2 months to the day after that Thanksgiving dinner, my sister showed up, uninvited, at my office. And she was crying. I was in a meeting when the receptionist buzzed me. "There's a woman here asking to see you. Says she's your sister." I didn't say anything at first. Just stared at the intercom on the wall like I hadn't heard right. My team glanced at me, confused. I stood up, walked to the glass door, and quietly said, "Reschedule. I need 10 minutes. When I stepped into the hallway and saw her, Rebecca, sitting in the lobby chair like she had a right to be there, something inside me tensed. She looked nothing like the woman from Thanksgiving. Her blazer was wrinkled. Eyes puffy. Makeup smudged just enough to betray the tears she must have wiped off in the car. She stood the second she saw me. "Hey," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't respond. Just tilted my head slightly toward my office door and turned around. She followed. I closed the door behind us, and for a moment we just stood there. Her eyes scanned the room, the whiteboard full of plans, the shelves lined with prototypes, the soft hum of a company that had clawed its way into existence. Then she sat. Without being invited. I didn't know where else to go," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry for just showing up. I didn't know who else." "What happened?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. She swallowed hard. "I lost my job. 2 weeks ago." I blinked. "The consulting firm?" She nodded. "They said it was about ethics. Internal violation. I made a judgment call on a client contract that didn't go through legal. It cost them money. They let me go." I didn't say anything. She kept going, unraveling piece by piece. "Mark left. The wedding's off. He said he can't be with someone who lies for a living. That's what he told me." Still, I said nothing. Tears were welling up in her eyes again. "I've been trying to get interviews, but the market's brutal. I burned bridges I didn't even know I was crossing. And I need help." Finally, she looked at me. "I know I don't deserve it. I know I was awful. But I need a job. A reference. Anything. Please." For a moment, the silence in the room stretched long enough to feel like gravity. I remembered that Thanksgiving night with a kind of painful clarity. Her voice like a blade in front of everyone. The sting of that sentence, "You'll never be good enough." The way nobody came to my defense. The way she laughed when I walked out. And now? Here she was. Wrecked. Ruined. Sitting in my office. She sat across from me, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. And not just physically, something in her had crumpled. The armor she wore so effortlessly at family dinners, the one stitched from designer suits and smug confidence, had torn clean through. What was left looked human. Hurting. But still very much her. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded, and let the silence do some of the talking. She wiped her face with a tissue from her purse, an expensive leather thing that still had the faint scent of perfume and privilege. "I know you probably hate me." I didn't deny it. Rebecca sniffled. I was angry that night. Stressed. Mark and I had been fighting already. Work was insane. I didn't mean what I said. "You didn't mean it?" I asked, my voice quiet. "You looked me in the eye and told me to quit. In front of everyone. Like my life, my work, didn't count." She looked away. I didn't respond because I knew it didn't matter what I said. "You'd already decided I wasn't worth listening to." I paused. "You didn't just attack me that night, Rebecca. You confirmed what you'd been saying with your eyes for years." That stung. I saw it in the way her lip trembled. "I remember the way you talk about my startup. Your little project. The way you'd brag about your bonuses like they proved you were better. The way you'd roll your eyes when Mom asked how I was doing, like even she should stop bothering. I didn't know you felt that way," she said, almost too quickly. "No," I said, sitting forward. "You just didn't care." She went quiet again. And then the plea came, soft, barely audible. "I need help, Mason. I'm not asking for much. Just something." I stared at her. And then I said it. Calmly. Without malice. Without even raising my voice. Maybe, I said, you should just quit already. She blinked, confused for a half second. And then it hit her. The words. Her words. The ones she threw at me like darts 2 months ago, now turned gently but unmistakably back toward her. I don't mean it out of spite. I added. I just think you should know what it feels like to hear that from someone who matters to you. To feel like your failures define you. Like you're never going to measure up. She covered her mouth with her hand, and for a second I thought she might actually break down. But she didn't. She just sat there, shoulders sagging under the weight of everything she never had to carry, until now. For a long time neither of us said a word. The office buzzed faintly outside the door, muffled conversations, the hum of fluorescent lights, the distant click of a keyboard, but inside that room, the air was still. Heavy. Like time itself had paused to see what I'd say next. She stared down at her hands. Perfectly manicured. Still clinging to the last threads of the life she used to own. I could see it on her face, this wasn't just humiliation. It was a collapse. And I had to make a choice. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. It wasn't a high-rise view, but it was mine. My company. My team. My success, quiet, earned, and real. And then I thought back. To every time she laughed when I said I couldn't make it to a family event because I was working. To the time she told our parents I was just playing entrepreneur. To the look she gave me the night I launched our prototype, a polite clap, followed by, "So, is this like a real job now?" I'd carried those moments like stones in my pocket. Not enough to break me. Just heavy enough to slow me down. And now here she was, hoping I'd forget all of it in one conversation. I turned back to her. She looked up, eyes rimmed red, and I said, "I'm not angry anymore." She blinked. Caught off guard. "I was," I continued, "for a long time. Not just at what you said, but at how small I let you make me feel. How much I gave up trying to be enough for people who didn't want to see me succeed unless it looked like your kind of success." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "I'm not giving you a job. Not here. Not after all that. My team deserves better than someone who saw me as a joke until she needed me." That landed. Like a quiet slap. "But I won't kick you while you're down," I added. "I'll write you a reference. A fair one. And I'll make a few calls. See if anyone I trust is hiring. That's it." She looked at me with a mixture of shame and something else. Maybe gratitude, maybe just disbelief. She nodded. "Okay," she whispered. She stood, wiping her eyes, smoothing her blouse. The moment had passed. The begging was over. She started walking to the door, but paused, her hand on the knob. "I didn't know you were this strong," she said, barely turning around. I met her gaze. "That's because you were too busy trying to keep me small." And then she left. After she left, I didn't move for a while. I sat back down, leaned forward with my elbows on my knees, and just breathed. Deep, steady breaths, like someone who'd just finished a long run and realized they weren't being chased anymore. Because in a way, I had been. Not by Rebecca, not exactly. But by this need to prove myself. To be seen. To be validated by people who measured worth in numbers, in titles, in appearances. And for the first time, I realized, I didn't care about that anymore. What I cared about was what we'd built. The nights I'd coded until my eyes burned. The meetings that fell flat until I figured out what made people lean in. The late-night ramen runs with my co-founder when we were $300 from overdraft. That was real. She had never understood that. Maybe she never would. But that moment, watching her walk out of my office, I finally saw her for who she really was, not the towering figure I used to measure myself against, but someone who had been playing a role so long she didn't know how to be without the script. And it made me sad. Not angry. Not smug. Just sad. Because for all her success, all her curated perfection, she didn't know how to survive when the applause stopped. She had built her life like a performance, And when the curtain fell, there was nothing behind it but panic. I didn't tell anyone in the office what happened. I didn't brag about her showing up, or the way I turned her own words back on her. I just opened my laptop and got back to work. Because that's what strength looked like now, not the cold satisfaction of revenge, but the quiet discipline of moving forward. A week went by. Then 2. No more calls. No awkward text from Rebecca trying to smooth things over. Just silence. I thought I'd feel triumphant, like I'd finally won something. But instead I felt still. Like I'd put down something heavy I didn't even know I was carrying. That Friday, I went to dinner with my team. We'd signed the papers for our next round of funding, and spirits were high. The kind of high that doesn't come from money, but from knowing you made it through something that could have broken you. We laughed. We drank cheap beer from a corner bar that didn't care who you were or what your resume said. It was the best I'd felt in months. On the walk back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. My mom. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. A text this time. I heard what happened with your sister. I don't know the whole story, but I hope you're okay. It was the first message I'd gotten from her since Thanksgiving. No apology. No ownership. Just a vague olive branch stretched from the other side of a fence she helped build. I stared at it for a minute, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I locked my phone and kept walking. Because I realized something that night. Family isn't about blood, or matching holiday sweaters, or pretending everything's fine when it's not. Family is who shows up when you're no one, not just when you've made it. And the people who'd been with me through the worst? They weren't sitting at that Thanksgiving table. They were in that bar, raising a glass to a future we carved out of chaos. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of lazy afternoon where nothing important is supposed to happen. I'd slept in for the first time in weeks, made coffee without checking my inbox, even sat on the balcony with a blanket and a book. For once, my brain wasn't churning over product design or pitch decks. That's when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there she was. Not Rebecca. My mother. She looked older. Not in the way years make you old, but in the way guilt does. Shoulders slightly hunched, makeup done like she was trying too hard to look normal. Her hands twisted around a tissue already crumpled. Mason, she said like it hurt to say it out loud. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I should have said something that night, she added quickly, eyes darting to the hallway like she was afraid someone might hear. Thanksgiving. What she said to you? I should have stopped it. You didn't, I said flatly. She nodded. I didn't. We stood there, suspended in an awkward silence. She was waiting for me to let her in. I didn't. Rebecca's struggling, she said, voice soft. I know you two have had your differences. Differences? I cut in. She humiliated me in front of the whole family. And you just kept carving turkey like I wasn't sitting right there. My mother winced. You know how your sister is. She's proud. She says things she doesn't mean. No, I said. She says exactly what she means. She just doesn't expect consequences. She swallowed and looked down at her feet. I'm not here to defend her, she said. I'm here because I don't want to lose both of my children. It was manipulative. It was emotional. And yet, for a split second, it worked. Because deep down, I still wanted to believe my mother had been caught in the middle. That maybe she hadn't spoken up that night because she was afraid, not indifferent. But then I remembered the phone calls that never came. The way she'd let Rebecca dictate the room, the conversation, the family dynamic, for years. She hadn't been caught in the middle. She'd picked a side. And now, when the golden child was cracked and bruised, she came to the one she'd ignored. Rebecca's been applying for jobs, she continued. No one will touch her with the ethics report. I thought maybe if someone credible backed her. No, I said. Sharp. Final. Her eyes lifted to mine. Mason, please. She's already been in my office. She already cried in that chair. I pointed past her. And asked me to fix the life she sabotaged. That stopped her. She told me I'd never be good enough, I said. Now she's sitting in the wreckage of her own words, and she wants me to build her a new one. I shook my head. You don't get to fall back on me just because she fell. My mother's voice cracked. She's your sister. I nodded. And I'm your son. That made her flinch. I used to think I had to earn love in this family, I said. That if I built something big enough, loud enough, shiny enough, you'd finally see me. Not just the kid with the startup, not the disappointment, but someone worthy. I let the silence hang. But now I realize. I was never invisible. You just didn't want to look. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't soften. I'll write her a reference, I said at last. Nothing glowing. Just true. She can take it or leave it. My mother nodded slowly, like it was more than she expected. And then? She asked. I shrugged. Then she does what she told me to do. She tilted her head. She figures it out on her own. The email I sent her was short. Attached is a reference letter. I kept it professional. Honest. Nothing more, nothing less. No greeting. No sign-off. Just business. She didn't reply, not right away. But 2 days later, I got a message from an old contact at a mid-sized software firm. Apparently, Rebecca had listed me as her reference. They were evaluating character fit. I kept it simple. She's capable. Detail-oriented. But she'll need support re-establishing trust. I'd recommend clear boundaries. That was it. No lies. No vendettas. Just the truth. And when I hung up the phone, something loosened in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but closure. The kind that doesn't announce itself with a bang, but a whisper. A quiet understanding that some people won't ever say sorry the way you want them to. That you don't need them to, in order to move on. For the first time in my adult life, I realized I didn't want revenge. I just wanted freedom. And I had it now.